Nostalgia's the best. It's also the worst. It makes grown men cheer and gives us our memories that may or may not be true. And that's the thing about nostalgia. Remembering something doesn't make it great. Just because you played it when you were little doesn't mean it was good. You may remember James Pond, but trust me, this is a fish best forgotten. For those of us not bitten by the nostalgia bug, James Pond was a 1990 platform game about a secret agent fish and a stunningly ballsy pun. It was published by EA for a bunch of consoles in the early 90s. The Genesis, the Amiga, the Acorn Archimedes, whatever the f*** that is. The game was also followed by a couple of sequels, including James Pond 2, codename ROBOCod. Holy moly pun cannoli. Anyway, that one came to the GBA in 2003. And listen, I'm obviously not very high on this thing, and I'll tell you why. I'm not sure I've ever played a platformer as obnoxiously floaty as James Pond. I'm a big fan of precision in platformers. This one's about as precise as a fish would be out of water. If you've never seen a fish out of water, that means it sucks. Like the air, because it can't breathe. And actually, loose controls and floaty mechanics are the least of this game's issues. James Pond has some of the worst level design you'll ever see in a platformer. It's just one huge, sprawling, empty level after another. I don't even understand how you can make levels that are this big and yet have nothing interesting inside them. It's like, wouldn't you at some point just accidentally add something clever? Just based on the math, you know? It's a matter of numbers at this point. So, what do you actually do? Well, you run around to the extent that you can, you jump on things to the extent that you can actually position yourself, and you collect things. I mean, all things. Fruits, lamps, musical instruments, jingle bells, whistles, drinks, baked goods, sports equipment. And hey, if that seems like a completely random list of completely random objects with no actual thought or purpose, that's because it is. Incidentally, so are its levels. There's just no goal or direction in this game. It's all so thrown together, it feels pointless. There's crap everywhere, and none of it's really that important. The levels are huge, but checkpoints are so infrequent, you're constantly restarting from the beginning of them, which sucks because the levels are huge and boring, which happens a lot because the controls are so bad. It's just one disaster after another. And then there's the music. I'll admit that I hold platformers to a pretty high standard. That's because there is a standard, and there's nothing worse than a floaty platformer with boring level design. James Pond is so that. It's a Mario clone from an era of Mario clones, but it misses everything that makes Mario so good. And even in its remade GBA form, James Pond just isn't as good as nostalgia would have you believe.